Hey everybody, we're about to get started in about a minute or so. Thanks for joining, and see you real soon. Hey everyone, welcome to the Twitch stream. I'm Christopher Diego. I'm with the Wacom Experience Center. This is now my third Twitch stream. Starting to get used to things working from home and coming to you live for Twitch instead of meeting you all down at the Wacom Experience Center in the Pearl. But hopefully we can get there soon. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I've been doing some macro photography in the backyard because I can't really go anywhere else. So I've been getting my camera out, looking at moss, some small plants, bugs, some lichen. I crawled up onto the roof of our shed and was photographing very small things, and I want to show some of you guys that. And so today I wanted to. It's gonna be strange because we're gonna start in Adobe Lightroom, and then we're gonna hop over to Photoshop, and we're gonna do some photo manipulation, some digital illustration. We're gonna learn how to make brushes in Photoshop, and I thought there was like one more thing. We're using like we're doing all the things today. If I can like figure out how to put some animation into this at the end, then I just might just for grins and giggles. It's called Experimental Wednesday, right? Um, I have a slightly different setup today with my computer, and so I might be responding to the chat a little bit less. I'm gonna hopefully just take a short break every once in a while and then hop over to the chat and see what's going on. Right now, I can see the chat, and Ked Whitney, Katie, thanks for joining in. Gray, always a pleasure to have you here. Um, and yeah, we're gonna get started. So I'm gonna pop over to Lightroom, but unfortunately, you're gonna see some of the behind the scenes stuff. And this is I'm using a software called OBS for to bring you all these fun graphics, and you're gonna see that in just a second. So bear with me. Yeah, it's got this like weird vortexy thing. Right on. So now we're gonna pop over to Lightroom, and yeah, give me 1 second. I'm like waiting for the Twitch channel to speed up. Cool. All right, it looks good. All right, so this is kind of what I've been working on in the backyard as like my first go around. So some of the stuff like this, these are the raw images, so there is no editing done to these, but they kind of look cool like right out of the camera, and like you can see like you can get super hyper detailed stuff. Like look at this wing. It's crazy. You can almost like see that the wing has like depth to it. I was trying to like photograph some bees because, you know, who doesn't like a good bee butt? Most of like the macro photography shots that I get, I would say like 95% of them are out of focus. With macro photography, you have like such a shallow depth of field that getting something in focus is actually quite challenging. Like if you think about like how wide a bee actually is, it's like less, it's like smaller than the size of a dime, right? And so the edge of the wing is in focus right here, but his abdomen is like starting to get out of focus, and his other wing is like completely out of focus. So it's a little bit tricky. It takes a lot of patience, but if you can get like some cool shots, it's pretty rewarding. Oh, yeah, this hornet was pretty gnarly. We're gonna get out of these bees and bugs in just a second and get into what I really want to show you guys, but I just wanted to really... Here we go. Really zoom in here. Yeah, I really like this one. Found a ladybug with no spots on it. Super red, super vibrant, and it's so cool with the macro photography, like what detail you can see. This is a rosemary bush in our backyard. And so now we're starting to get into the stuff that I wanted to play with today, and I found this like passive moss and lichen and a bunch of other stuff. I have no idea what it is. It's just this crazy small little world that exists on the roof of our shed. And I wanted to like dive deep into some of like the details, some of the grit into some of these shots, because it really is kind of like otherworldly. And it looks like there is a... We're back, okay. So I'm gonna go into a couple more of these that I've edited. This is an edited shot. I want to show you like original versus... So I haven't really done a whole lot to this photograph. This is the before, and this is the after. So a little bit of color grading, a little bit of contrast, a little bit of like saturation boost, but not a whole lot. Like you really don't have to edit a lot of macro photography shots that much in order for them to look cool, which I kind of appreciate. Sometimes when you're doing like landscapes or portraits or something like that, you can really get kind of in the details a little bit too much and over edit things really easily. But with macro photography, things already look cool, and no one, it's like hard to see these details in real life at this scale, so you don't really need to do much to them, which I really appreciate. And when you get this small, it's, you get this like surreal feeling to things. You start thinking about scale a little bit differently, and how big this actually is. This is probably like, this whole scene is probably the size of like a quarter or something like that. But you can't really tell. This could be, those things could be as tall as me. You just never know. I really like this one. I'm not going to play with this one today, but I want to play with this one in the future. I want to do some like photo manipulation with this and like maybe put a character in the middle of it. It would be cool if we could see like a character come into focus and out of focus with this one. So something like that would be coming towards the camera, I think would be really interesting, because we'd then be able to get to play with depth of field and the Gaussian blur effect. I'm gonna say that like probably 4 different ways during this tutorial. Gaussian blur, it's Wacom versus Wacom. It's Wacom, by the way. Let's get that. Let's get that out of into the open. It's Wacom. But I don't know how to say that word right. Gaussian blur. I'm gonna say Gaussian. So this next shot is kind of what I wanted to start playing around with today, and I'm gonna start actually getting into this one. This is like some manipulation that I've already started. Obviously the color is very different. I'm gonna go to the original photo, just flip it back and forth. So here's the original. It's already like super weird. You can kind of see some stuff, maybe like a stick in the background. You can see some moss. You can see some lichen that is a little bit, you can like tell what it is. But if I showed this to someone, I'd be like, what is this? I think most people would be like, I don't really know. And that's what I kind of like about it. To me, it kind of feels like an underwater scene. It kind of feels like coral. And so that's what I kind of wanted to play with today. I'm going to flip back here. Like these fish over here that are in the background, those are painted in. I'm going to show you guys how to create these bubbles, and to make them a little bit more convincing than they are right now. And I'm going to do some color grading. I'm going to do some photo manipulation. Like if you look at the top of the screen right here, it looks a lot different. Like there's this really dark patch. I'm gonna show you how to get rid of that dark patch, and maybe add some textures, how to make light beams. This is gonna be a weird one today. So I'm gonna start getting into the editing of this one, and there is, for the Wacom users out there, I'm gonna check the chat really quick. Hold on. Cool. I think we're okay. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so for all the Wacom users out there, I want to show you something really quick. Lightroom is all about sliders on the right side of the screen. You're just sliding things up and down all day. And honestly, having a pen to do that with, like, it's fine. Like, I'm not saying a mouse is better. I'm not saying, like, there is, like, a better way to do it. But you don't really need a stylus in order to do that. But having the stylus can actually be kind of difficult unless you have a certain feature checked on or off in your settings. And I want to show you guys that right now in case anyone out there has had this problem before, because it bugged me for a really long time until I figured it out. So there's this thing called Windows Ink, and you need to be able to either check it or uncheck it. So in your Wacom Desktop Center, you just got to pull this up, go to your pen settings, and under Calibrate, there's this little box here that says Use Windows Ink. If I have it checked, and I go back to Lightroom, and I try to go to these sliders, there's a little bit of a delay when I pull on some of the sliders. And I actually have to pull the slider a bit too far before I can actually start seeing adjustments. And that always frustrated me. It's really annoying because I always have to over edit something before I can go back into what I actually want. But if you uncheck Windows Ink and then come back, this slider moves automatically. So if anyone is playing around in Lightroom, has a Wacom stylus, and has ever come across that, there's your workaround, there's your fix. If anyone in the development team for Wacom is watching this, there's some feedback for you. Free of charge. Cool. Alright, so now that we have Windows Ink turned off, I'm going to play around with this photo a bit. So essentially what I'm thinking about doing is getting it ready for Photoshop, because I'm not going to be doing the majority of my edits in Lightroom. Lightroom is really great for what's called global editing, making changes to everything in your photo all at once, but it's not very good at making local adjustments, meaning like tiny little pieces. It does an okay job for some things, but if you really want to start getting into like hyper detail stuff of a photo, that's when you got to go to Photoshop. I could change the color of everything all at once here, and Lightroom is really great at doing that. But in order to get what I want and make this look weird, that's the goal of today, is just let's make this look weird. And I'm going to show you some interesting ways that I found in order to do that. So I'm going to bump up the clarity. Clarity is really cool. It adds like tiny miniature details. It makes your details pop. Obviously you can overdo it and things look kind of gross. I see a lot of Instagram filters use this and I hate it. But I'm actually going to bump up the clarity a little bit on this one. I'm going to add a little bit of exposure. I'm going to bring up the shadows and the blacks. Because like, I'm trying to think of like underwater. And when you're underwater, nothing is like completely black and nothing is like completely white. It's like lies somewhere in the middle there. And SkyMall Rats, thanks for joining the chat. And I'm giving critical feedback, and I think this feedback is needed, so I don't want to hear it. So as I was saying, like something that's underwater has like really low contrast, and it tends to be on a bit on the darker side. So I want to also take my highlights down a bit. Everything is muted. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I think vignetting is something that can be like really overdone in photographs, and I do it all the time. But I always say this. I like to think that if I can notice a vignette, then it's overdone. Like, this is really bad. I like to put things at like right around in there. So you can't even tell that there's a vignette on this, and a vignette is just like darkened edges or lightened edges. We could go the opposite way and do this. That's awful. But we could like go somewhere like in this range, and you can't even tell that it's there, but if I toggle it on and off, it makes a difference. And I would say like that's like the majority of my editing in Lightroom. It's just making a bunch of tiny micro adjustments, and in the end it kind of builds up to a completely different picture. Sharpening is something I like to do, but there's a trick to sharpening in Lightroom. So we're going to go over here to sharpening, and we can go up to like amount and put it about like halfway. Don't worry about like radius and detail too much. You can play around with those. But the masking is really what comes in handy, because if I put the amount up to whatever I want, what's going to happen is it's just going to sharpen everything in the photo. And I don't want everything to be sharp. I just want the parts of my photo that are in focus to be sharp, because everywhere else is just like whatever. We're just focusing on the subject, and the subject should be in focus, ideally. So we're going to go over to masking, and if you play with this slider a bit, you're like, okay, cool, nothing's really happening. But what you need to do, this is like the secret no one tells you, is hold down Alt and then move this slider. And what happens is you start to get this cool black and white version of your image. And essentially what this is telling you is that everything that is in white is going to be affected by the sharpening. Everything in black is not going to be. So instead of like sharpening all of like the weird details on the side, I'm actually gonna throw this slider all the way up almost, because really I just want these pillars that are in focus. Turn my phone off. This is the second Twitch stream that I've done I haven't turned my phone off at the beginning. Just rookie mistaking. Okay. Yeah, so I just want the pillars to be sharpened, and now I can actually move my amount up a little bit more, and it won't be as obvious that I've like hyper sharpened this photo. Now everyone out there is like in the Twitch stream right now, and this is probably more low res than like what I'm looking at it, so you might not be able to tell the difference, but you know, I know, and that's what really matters. Excuse me. Just had a bowl of cereal. Yeah. So there's my tip for sharpening something. Split toning we're gonna get into in just a second. Split toning is a really fun tool, and it's a really fun way to get cool filter-like effects on your photo. And I'm going to bring this into Photoshop first and then come back to split toning. Using the histogram is also fun. I'm going to bring up my shadows a little bit more. I think the more shadows I bring up, the more details you'll be able to see. And like I said before, like Lightroom is all about making like hyper little micro adjustments until you can see something cool. I'm not going to mess with the color too much because I want to do that later. But I'm going to toggle before and after off. So before, after, like I said, not really a whole lot of difference, but I'm just prepping it to go to Photoshop. In fact, I'm going to do that now. What's cool about Lightroom, and I'm pretty sure like you can get the Adobe package, the photography package for like $10 a month, which is awesome. You get Photoshop and Lightroom. And Lightroom and Photoshop can be really awesome together. And I like wasps, sky mall rats. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about wasps. Okay, so what you gotta do is right click on your photo and then go to edit in, and you can go edit in Photoshop 2020. And bam, here's our photo in Photoshop 2020. And what's great is anytime I make a change in this, it's going to if I hit save, it's just automatically going to bring this over to Lightroom, and we're going to have those changes seen. Okay. So now we're going to start doing some weird stuff. A lot of the times when I'm doing photo manipulation, I just automatically create a backup of my original photo in case I really mess something up. I try to be as non-destructive with my Photoshop editing as possible. Just because, you know, it's digital. I love that undo button. So, in my head, this is going to be entirely underwater. And I'm just going to turn the music down just for a second. And so everything at the top of the screen, I want to be clear because I want that to kind of give the illusion that that's the top of the water. So this big dark spot up here, I'm going to get rid of. And I'm going to do that by hitting J on my keyboard. So Photoshop has like all of these like tools over on the side here. Um, but on the very last tool, usually there's like a little flyout menu, and there's a bunch more tools that you can play with. And so I'm gonna go to the patch tool. It works in conjunction with the healing brush tool, the spot healing brush tool. I use these a lot of the times when I'm doing photo restoration, which we could do another video on. I think I'm going to do a photo restoration class either next week or the week after, just to keep things interesting. I like to take old photographs and either get rid of dust, get rid of scratches, get rid of damage, or sometimes I even like to color them, which is a lot of fun. But anyways, I'm going to go to the patch tool, and the patch tool is pretty cool. I'm going to make sure I'm on the right layer, because I only have 2 layers and I was on the wrong one. And all I'm going to do is just highlight this dark spot right here and move it over. I'm going to highlight this dark spot, move it over here. And all I'm saying to Photoshop is like make this area that I've selected like this area. Bam. Super easy. Makes life better. What's cool about this tool is it automatically softens the edges. So it automatically blends things. So there's not really a whole lot of work involved, which is great. Yeah. Cool, that looks better. You can see the difference there. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to go over to my gradient tool. And I'm going to pick a couple of colors. My foreground color is going to be like it's going to be like this like super vibrant teal. I'm going to hit X, and it's going to go to my background color. And that's going to be like more in like the dark blue purplish area. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to go bam. But I did it wrong because this is the radial gradient, and essentially what that does is it creates a circle gradient. But I want this gradient, the directional. What's this one called? Linear gradient. I want the linear gradient. And great. We've lost our image. Just kidding. We're gonna change the blending mode to color. And I'm gonna bring the opacity down. Because we want some of that color to come through. Like I like having some of the greens in this original be there, but like if you were underwater, obviously most things would be blue. We have this like these little spots of red throughout our image, which probably wouldn't show up if we were like deep underwater. But that's okay, you know? This image is living in my world. Cool. It's looking good. Actually, I think I want to bump this up a little bit more. Cool. All right, we're getting there. Now, also like something I want to think about is like if we were underwater, there would be like a lot of little things floating around, little specks, dust. So I'm gonna create this dust effect, and this effect can be used like if it was like snowing outside, or this could be rain, but I think this works best with snow. But this effect is also really cool if you want to make an image look like it was really old, like if you wanted to like add like a old-timey film filter. This is a really good way to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to hit G. I'm going to actually hit Shift G. If I hit Shift G, it'll cycle between my paint bucket tool, my gradient tool, and this other tool bucket that I've never used before in my life. So I just want my paint bucket tool. I want black. I'm going to paint this whole thing black. Now we have nothing. That's great. I'm going to go up to filter. I'm going to go noise. I'm going to go to add noise. And we're going to add a lot of noise. You can play around with these too. For this effect, I would just want to make sure that this says monochromatic. Otherwise, we're going to get this like weird static TV effect, and I don't want that. I just want black and white. And you can like switch between Gaussian, there's that word again. I need to figure out actually how to say this. And uniform. I'm going to pick uniform for this one. I think this is going to give me the best option. Now, for this next step, we should talk about something. This is a gigantic file. When I shoot with my camera, I use my DSLR, and I shoot raw images, and essentially that just means you can have JPEGs, you can have PNGs. Well, my camera will shoot in either RAW or JPEG, and a JPEG is essentially a compressed file, but this is a RAW file, and that means that there is a lot of information in this. This file is going to be gigantic, and Photoshop does a pretty good job at handling this, but this is going to... I'm going to start stressing out this computer if I make too many of these adjustments. And so what I'm actually going to do with this effect, and with this effect, it's way too small and way too detailed for what I want. So I'm going to use the marquee tool, and I'm going to get like that much of it. I'm going to invert my selection with Shift-Control-I, and I'm going to hit delete. And so now I have this. I'm going to Control-D to deselect this, Control-T, and I'm just going to expand this. Photoshop is going to thank me later for this, because otherwise I'd just be stressing out this computer. Cool. So essentially now we have a bunch of like little white dots. You know, I might even do this again. I'm going to make it even smaller. Control-T. So, yeah, now we have a bunch of like little black and white dots, which is all well and good, but it's not really what we want in the end. If I go to our blending mode and I do screen, now we only have white dots. Screen will essentially get rid of the black dots. So now what we are left with is like all of this like super dusty. This is like super dusty. Obviously, we don't want that, but we can adjust this with our tone curve. So I can bring this over to almost the end here. And now we have all of these little speckies. And it's just gonna kind of give that like dusty effect to it. Yeah, I kind of like that. And I'm gonna actually change this up a little bit. I'm going to take these. What am I gonna do? So this is gonna be like, this is where the experimental part comes in, because I'm kind of just, I did some prep, but I'm kind of just winging it, to be honest. I'm gonna take these, I'm gonna duplicate it. I'm going to take this first one, and here's that word again. I'm going to go up to blur. I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. And if I do it too much, it'll essentially just erase everything, and everything will be like too blurry. But I just want some of them to be in focus, some of them to be out of focus to give this kind of illusion of depth. I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it slightly. So there'll be twice as many of these little flecks, but some will be in focus, some will be out of focus. Cool. I think that's good. Go check the chat. Bring the noise. Love it. Okay, I think we're good. Just gonna make a couple more adjustments before we go back to Lightroom. Yeah. That's looking good. Might even add some more later. So now, I'm going to hit Control S for save. It's always important to save. What's cool about Lightroom is you don't have to hit that. Everything is just like always saving, always updating. Oh. And like I said before, because this is such a huge document, it's going to take a second to save. You can't see it because my screen is up, my little lower third, but I have a little progress bar down in the corner telling me, stop panicking, it is saving. Let's see here. Still hasn't updated. Come on, Photoshop. This is where the banter comes in. I was supposed to prep banter. There it goes. There we go. So now we're in Photoshop, or now we're back into Lightroom. And I almost think things are too dusty. I gotta go back to Photoshop for a second. Filter, blur. Things are just a little too dusty. So we're gonna add a blur effect. A very small blur effect. Like 0.3 pixels. Okay. I'm gonna do that again. Yeah. I think that's gonna be better. Gonna hit save. 10%, 99%. It always gets me because the saving bar goes like it jumps to 99% and then stalls there for a second. Every time. If dust is underwater, is it still dust? Yeah, dust would kind of like imply that it's like dry, right? You got me. I don't know. It's noise. It's just noisy. I'm gonna come out of quarantine with flattened ears. I've been wearing these headphones all day, every day. Here we go. All right, save bar. Now we're back. Yeah, this is a much better effect. It was a little bit too much before. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go down to split toning. Split toning is super fun. What essentially that does is you can control different tones in. I'm going to show you guys another secret. Again, if you hit Alt and move this slider, it's different than. Great. So essentially, if you hold down Alt and move this slider, it shows you what this effect would be if it was at 100% saturation. Now, I'm not going to do 100% saturation, but it does give me an idea of the color that I'm going for. And the color that I want is a green-blue that's more on the green side. Because I want like that like Caribbean blue look to it. So when we talk about highlights, this split toning is, this top part is only going to affect the highlights of my photo. And so everything that's light is going to be, there's going to be essentially a tinted color to it. And it's not going to affect the darks all that much. And I am not going to move this slider up too much. I'm going to do like, maybe like 10%. Cool. Now we're going to go down to the shadows, and I'm going to do that same thing. I'm going to add a blue to it. And again, the slider is showing me if everything was at 100%, and that's because I'm holding down the Alt key and moving this slider. And I'm going to go for like that blue-purple. I'm going to kind of move things up. I'm not going to do this too much because we already added a blue filter in Photoshop, but I think this just adds a little bit more. And then I like to play with this balance right here, and that's essentially saying, do you want this color gradient to be weighted towards the darker color that you chose or the lighter color? And I kind of like to play around with it. I do want some kind of like green to show through, so I am going to weigh a little bit on the highlights. And actually, I think I'm going to, if you click on this little box here, you can use the color picker, which can be pretty helpful for seeing what you're doing. No, I'm gonna undo that and go back with what I had. Yeah, I like this. Cool. So this has gotten to point. Sorry, check it in the chat. Suspended particles. That's real great. Is that a good band name? I always like try to like test out a band name. Like when I hear one, you just have to like yell, "We're suspended particles. Good night." I don't know. But that one doesn't work for me. Okay, so now what's up is we need to take this photo and actually bring it back to Photoshop, but we're going to export this, and I'm going to kind of explain why as I go through this. I'm going to go export. I'm going to just name this real quick, Twitch Sharky photo live. And hit export. So now we're gonna go to Photoshop. I'm gonna close this one. I'm gonna go File, New, and I'm not doing File, Open. I'm going to make a new document, and that will become clear in just a second. I'm going to make it about 10 inches by 9 inches, which is still a pretty big Photoshop document. Normally what I work in is about like 6 to 7 inch square. I try not to like stress out Photoshop too much because then you start to get lag, and lag while you're illustrating is like the worst. But I have faith in my Wacom Pro engine to do a 10-inch by 9-inch document. I'm gonna hit create. So now I have this blank document. Then I'm gonna go to File. I'm gonna go to Open. And I'm gonna grab the photo I just exported. I'm gonna hit Open. And so now I have my blank document and this document that we just exported from Lightroom. So I'm just gonna take my Move tool. I'm gonna drag this, bring it up to my document, and I'm gonna do this. So this, Control T, here we go. So this outer bounding box is my entire image, and it is quite large. And I don't really want to do like this giant illustration that's that big. I just don't need to. If I ever needed to print this or something like that, I think a 10-inch by 9-inch canvas would be sufficient. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to end up like cropping this a bit. Might actually change my document size now that we're here. Yeah, I'm going to change my document size. So in order to do that, you can just go up to Image, Canvas Size. This is in pixels right now. I'm going to change that to inches. Width, I'm going to change 12th and change that to 8. Proceed. There we go. So hopefully with this document size, oh yeah, there's not going to be like any cropping. We're going to lose some edges, but that's okay. Cool. All right. I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to paint this black. I'm going to pick a foreground background color. Do black and white. Go up to filter, right? Filter. I'm going to go to render. And I'm going to go to clouds. Cool. Awesome possum. Then I'm going to go to next step. I'm going to go to filter gallery. This is going to look really stupid in a second, but no fear. I'm going to go to sketch, and I'm going to go to Chrome, and it's going to give me this weird metallic puddle looking effect. Cool. We have weird metallic puddle, and I don't want all of this. So just like we did before, I want to up the scale of this effect a little bit, and I'm going to delete some of it and expand some of it. Cool. That's just going to make like, it's going to be less details, and it's just going to be better for what I want. Cool. We're going to hit that. Okay, then we're going to go to the blending mode. Photoshop's all about the blending modes. And we're going to go to the one that looks good. And all of these look like trash. This one's not bad, actually. Soft light. It's all going to look really bad up until a certain point. So, oh, that one's weird and cool. Luminosity. Divide, difference, hardline. I think soft light was, or overlay was kind of our winner. A lot of these blending modes, most of the time, I'm just like, which one looks best? I think it's soft light. I think soft light is our winner. Okay, so we're gonna hit soft light. And I'm gonna put a clipping mask. That's what that's called, right? Vector mask, excuse me. I'm gonna add a mask to this whole thing, and I'm gonna get my gradient tool. Make sure it's on black and white, and I'm gonna get rid, oopsie daisies, of most of this. Essentially, I just want so it's like up in the corner there. Before I do that, actually, I'm gonna hit Control T, go to the free transform tool. I'm gonna move this out to give it some kind of perspective. Because essentially, like, the look I'm going for is, this is gonna be like the surface of the water. If I didn't say that already, that's kind of like what I'm going for. And I want it to kind of look like it's receding into the background. And so right now I'm just kind of like adding a little bit of stretch to this. And this might not work. Again, we're experimenting. This whole thing is just to see how weird we can make this shot look. Okay, that's good. Now I'm gonna go to my mask. Okay, go to G. And I'm gonna get rid of some of this. I'm gonna go to brush. I'm gonna pick a super soft brush. Super soft. I'm gonna go into here. Make my brush bigger. And I'm gonna paint in some areas and paint out some areas. Because obviously we don't want it here. And the further you go into the background, the less you're gonna see it. In the end, I want this to be super subtle. I want you to like not even think about it. Don't think about it. And I'm gonna turn the opacity of this down. Cool. Just like some weird underwatery texture thingy. Cool. That's gonna be what we call good enough. Maybe not. That's what we're gonna call good enough. Okay, okay. I'm gonna add a new layer. I'm gonna find a brush. I'm gonna find a weird brush. What's this one? No, I don't want that one. I want kind of a splattery brush, probably from the drawing box, something like chalky. This might work. That's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. Bear with me. I'm looking for a brush that has like a lot of like particles on the side. There's that word again, particle. We're gonna try this one. Thank you, Shady Graphite. So I'm gonna put this on mostly white, and I'm going to start making, just kind of painting in, drawing in some white areas. I love when I start like a new process in Photoshop, it looks terrible until the end. It's like, what are you doing? You'll see. You'll see. I might end up having to choose a different brush. And so this is kind of what I was talking about when I'm like stressing out Photoshop, because I'm not drawing right now, and Photoshop is like trying to catch up with what I'm doing, which is fine. We can. This is kind of a. It's kind of a intricate brush. I forgive you, Photoshop. I'm gonna delete some areas. Yeah, there we go. Now it's looking great. Don't you agree? Isn't it awesome? So what I'm gonna do with these white patches, these cloudy things, so I'm actually going to turn these into rays, and hopefully the idea is that it will look like rays are coming through the top of the screen and kind of dissipating as they get to the bottom of the screen. And so how I'm going to do that, I'm going to go up to filter, I'm going to go to blur, but we're not going to use the Gaussian blur, which is what I use for like 95% of things. We're going to go to the radial blur. We're going to, under blur method, we're going to go to zoom. And when you go to, you can change where it says blur center, and it gives you this like little grid thing. We're going to move the grid center to the corner, and we're going to change the amount to like a lot. So hopefully we get something that looks kind of like this. We're gonna hit OK. Now there might be like some trial and error with this, and that's okay. But out of the box, this isn't looking that bad. There's some areas in here that I quite like. You get some heavenly shines in here. But obviously we're underwater, we wouldn't see it that much. So I'm going to turn the opacity down. I'm going to apply this layer mask and get rid of it. I'm going to add a new vector mask. And I'm going to go to the soft round opacity brush. This is like what I use for just about everything. And I'm going to get rid of some of this shine by painting in black, because we just wouldn't see it in some of these areas. Because they would be in shadow. I don't know how much you guys can actually see what I'm doing, but making like really small adjustments right now. Cool. Super groovy. So now we're getting there. A lot of times when I'm working on photos, I like to like zoom out. I think like getting super close to things like this and like working, although that looks super cool and you can like get some like really detailed stuff, it's not really helpful because no one is going to look at your photo like that. And if they are, stop looking at my photos like that. Knock it off. I didn't want to do that. Cool. Let's look at what this did. It really really washed out a lot of our photo. I'm going to turn the opacity down a little bit. And I want to get rid of some of the light rays over here because I quite like some of these details and I don't want them to get washed out. But I think that's good. I think that's good. Yeah. Cool. Alright. I'm gonna hit save because I haven't done that yet. Sharky underwater Twitch live thing. How do you save your things? Okay. So I quite like this next step. So obviously Kyle Webster makes a zillion different brushes and they're all really great. But when I need something hyper specific, like I'm about to, sometimes you just need to make your own brush. And that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna show you guys how to make a brush. I'm gonna make a new document. It's gonna be really small. It's gonna be 300 by 300 pixels. I'm gonna hit create. Look how small this document is. This is the cutest document. It's so small. Gonna make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to hit M. I'm gonna hit Shift M to get my little lasso tool here. I'm gonna get, you need a brush in order to make a brush. I'm gonna paint this in black. You know what? I'm gonna get my paint bucket tool. I'm gonna paint that black. And then I'm gonna get my brush tool, my soft brush tool. And because I have this pressure sensitive, whoopsie daisies, that's not what I wanted. Maybe it is what I wanted. I don't know, what do you want? Okay, I'm gonna hit that. I'm gonna make this black. I'm gonna go to my brush tool, and I'm gonna paint with white. Because I have this pressure sensitive pen, which is oh so great. Thank you so much, Wacom. I'm gonna just tap in the middle and I'm gonna make this gradient. This is all gonna make sense. Or it won't. We're experimenting, right? And now I have this like orby looking thing, which is amazing. Look at this art. I'm gonna take black. I'm gonna paint in a little circle right here. And I'm gonna paint a smaller circle here. This is essentially going to be the outline of our brush. I don't like that circle, it's a bad circle. That's a better one. And if you couldn't tell already, I am making a bubble. So when you're making brushes in Photoshop, you have to make them in black and white. And essentially what Photoshop is going to be reading is all of the black data and leaving out all of the white. And so everywhere where it's white is going to be transparent, and all of the black is going to be where we're actually going to be making our marks. So I still have this selected. So what you can do is go up to Edit and Define Brush Preset. And I'm going to call this Bubble Brush 3 because I already made 2. And it gives us this crazy looking brush. Let's test it. Always good to test. I'm gonna make a new layer. Oopsie daisies. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It could be It could be brighter, not gonna lie. Test it over here. It's not bad, it's subtle. I'm gonna go to one of the brushes I made before and test it out. Bubble brush. Yeah, the brush I made before might be a little bit better. I'm gonna delete this. I'm gonna add a new layer. Because I want to show you, we need to make some adjustments on this. So, obviously we can make some bubbles, and that's all well and good, but if I hold this down, that's not good. It's like a snake, and we want bubbles and not snakes. So what I'm going to do, I can increase the spacing on this, which is awesome. I can go to shape dynamics and change the size jitter, which is awesome. And I can go to scattering and turn scattering up, which is awesome. So now, when I hold this brush down, it gives us a bunch of random bubbles, which is awesome. I'm gonna turn this to white. So now we're getting bubbles. Look at these bubbles. They're so beautiful. Beautiful bubbles. Cute. I'm gonna erase these bubbles. I want these bubbles to be more intentional than that. Alright. I'm going to turn my scatter down a little bit. Cool. We now have the best bubble brush the world has ever seen. So I'm going to start off by making like gigantic bubbles. Checking the chat. Where are we? Yes, brush making. Art Rage probably has a bubble brush. You're right, Carter. It probably does. Not as good as this one, because I made it and it's special to me. Okay. Now, I'm going to make some really big bubbles. You know what? If I'm being completely honest, I think we need to... I think I'm gonna make an adjustment on this. Everyone, bear with me. I'm gonna make this super fast. I want to make an adjustment on this. I just thought my bubbles were a little bit too transparent, and so I'm just gonna make the edges of my bubble a little bit darker. Brush 4. Try again. Oh yeah, now we're talking. Look at that bubble. Jeez, that's the most opaque bubble one ever did see. Okay, we're gonna have a little bit more control over these bubbles. All right. Do that part again. No, I don't want that one. I want my bubble brush. the spacing up, size jitter, scattering. Where'd it go? What am I not doing right? It's not drawing. Drop. Oh, jeez. I'm on the eraser. Ah, jeez. Ah, jeez. There's always like something in Photoshop that's like messed up. You always have like one button pressed down and you're like, what is happening? You can't do anything. I can't draw. That doesn't happen to anyone else. Okay. We're good. We're ready to rock. Okay, so I'm gonna make one layer. I'm gonna make some super big bubbles. Doesn't this look magical? It's like seen straight out of The Little Mermaid. Okay, I'm gonna turn the opacity down on those. And I'm gonna go to filter, blur, and you guessed it, the Gaussian blur. And I'm gonna blur these suckers out of existence, essentially. Because I don't want you to look at these bubbles, but I want you to know that they're there. Cool. That's looking pretty good somewhere in this ballpark. Okay, cool. Now I'm gonna make little bubbles on a new layer. I was working on the wrong layer. And I'm just gonna add just bubbles. I'll make these bubbles a little bit bluer. Because those bubbles, nope, I hate that. I'm gonna go back to white. We're experimenting, remember? There's bubbles along the ground because like there's little sea creatures, maybe. And they're doing bubble stuff. I've come a long way in an hour. Just saw the time. Time flies when you're bubbling. Okay, so I'm gonna lower the opacity on these guys too. I don't need them to be super intense. I'm gonna duplicate this layer by dragging it down. If I drag this layer down to the new layer, it duplicates it. I'm gonna go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Just gonna blur these a bit. Gonna add a vector mask to this. Maybe that's not what I wanted to do. That doesn't look bad, actually. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. I'm sorry if I'm working in like small stuff right now and you can't really see the differences that I'm doing. But just know there's beautiful bubbles in there. So now I essentially have like these two layers of bubbles. Some are in focus and some are not. And I want some of my bubbles to be in focus, where some of my images in focus. So I'm just gonna paint some of these away. Photoshop needs to catch up with me. Uh-oh. I think Photoshop froze. Here we go. It's back. It was just stressed out. Just a little stressed. In focus bubbles. Cool. All right. So I feel like we've done quite a bit, and now we're gonna get to, we're gonna draw. We're gonna do some digital drawing, and I'm gonna create a new layer. I have not been naming my layers. I don't know if you noticed. Ooh. I'm gonna call this fish in the background. And I'm gonna get an oil brush. Oil brushes are weird. And I'm gonna paint in a little school of fish over here. Not really gonna worry too much about details. Megan asks, is my bubble brush pressure sensitive? And yes, it is. If I have a light touch, I'll make small bubbles. If I have a harder touch, I'll make big bubbles. I could also do opacity based off of my touch, but I just made them all the same opacity. Isn't this fish beautiful? Pretty much the best thing I've ever made. Cool. That's a pretty good fish right there. I'm gonna duplicate it. I'm gonna duplicate it again. Look at all these fish. I'm gonna make this one smaller. These are just the best boys. I'm gonna put this big one in the back. I'm gonna merge these layers because I don't need a million layers. I'm gonna move this over just like that. Going to put a filter. I'm gonna put a blur. Gaussian blur. Our favorite thing ever. Except I don't want to do it on the layer mask. I want to do it on the actual layer. I need a keyboard shortcut for that because I use it all the time. So I'm just going to blur these fish out because they're so far in the background you can't see details on them. And everything else is out of focus. And because this guy is using the wrong brush, cool. We got some fish in the background. Those fish really sell this. All right. What else is going on in here? Let's get my oil brush back. I want some more fishies. All about them fish. Make these ones a little bit lighter. Oh man, I was wrong before. This is the fish. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever done. Look at that fish. Oh my god. So majestic. What? Oh man, I've actually accidentally set my brush, my eraser, to a bubble brush, and that's not good. My favorite eraser is one of Kyle Webster erasers, and just this 100% one, because when I don't want something, I really don't want it, so I use the 100%. Look at that fish. Just the best boy. Cool. Duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. Oh, what if one fish was in front of the other fish? So perfect. Do some erasing. Make them a little bit smaller because they're even further in the background. Filter. Oh wait, I need to merge these. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Good. Get that layer mask. Change my brush. There's like a million steps to everything. Get rid of this fishy. So it looks like he's behind this thingy. Is that too obvious? It's too obvious. There we go. Okay, so now we're coming up on our main focal point here. This is where it's all coming to life. We're going to put a shark in this. I know. I'm going to hit save. I cheated and I started drawing a shark so I wouldn't have to like scramble and figure out how to draw a shark while I was talking to you guys. So I'm gonna open that real quick. You might notice this looks so similar to what I'm working on now. Sharky. Delete layer mask. So I'm just gonna take my shark and drop him over here. Nope. Sorry for cheating, y'all. It's just the best cheater. That's what Photoshop is, just a bunch of cheating. Just trying to make one thing look like another. Oh yeah, we're getting somewhere now. Look at this. Look at that beautiful boy. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm eventually gonna paint this with my oil brush, but it's really good to not use the oil brush for your base layer because things just move a little bit quicker. What does a shark look like? Jeez. It's got like blue and you know what? Time out. You gotta take care of yourself before you can take care of a shark boy. I need some water. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh man, my webcam's frozen. Can you guys still hear me? Webcam is frozen. Alright. Give me a second. What are you doing, webcam? Now, we're in OBS, and everyone gets to see how OBS works. So, video capture device. I'm just going to delete this video capture device. And I'm going to create a new one. It's almost like this has happened before and I know how to fix it. Why would that be? Stupid. Stupid is still not there. Oh man. Alright. Go to panic mode. Panic! Panic! We're gonna panic. I'm gonna unplug the camera. I'm gonna plug it back in. Oh, it blinked. It blinked. That's a good sign. Yes. Video capture device. It's still not there. Oh no. Oh no, it's still not there. Cancel. You know what the worst part is? I think I would need to stop streaming, quit OBS, and relaunch OBS. I don't want to do that. Because I don't want to stop the stream. Because everyone is here having a great time. Stupid camera. But didn't you all just love seeing me? Ooh. Here I am! Hooray! It decided to work. Now just gotta get me back in the corner. Get back in the corner. Get in the corner. Get in the corner. Look at that. Look at that. I feel like I've really started to hit my stride in being able to talk with myself. And I want to thank my moderators at this time, Megan and Carter, for sticking with me. We've been here in an hour and a half, and I've been drawing shark stuff. Thank you so much, and thanks for alerting me that my video was frozen. I probably wouldn't have noticed. Alright, we're going back to Photoshop. Alright. So, what do I want to do here? Oh, Photoshop's frozen. That's good. Thing with Photoshop, everything is like, you just gotta figure out how to deal with it. Photoshop, I've found, is you just gotta wait. You just gotta let it do its thing. Ooh, it's frozen again. Everything is crumbling down. Good thing I'm having so much fun. Okay, here we go. All I wanted was that layer to be under that layer, and I want a color. I'm gonna block in, now that we're back, I'm blocking in a lot of my colors with just a very simple brush. It's just like, hey, put a mark down on the paper. And this brush was like, okay, I can do that. It's not going to be fancy. And I'm like, perfect. I don't need that fancy. Anyone know shark parts? What's that fin called? Dorsal? Which one's the dorsal fin? Is this the dorsal fin? What's this little fin called? I think I just stopped talking. Thanks, Sky Mall Rats. Having my back. Sharky, Sharky. Gotta love the Sharky. Now, apologies in advance for the silence. This is what I'm finding I struggle with most is drawing and talking at the same time. I've seen some really cool artists out there who are really good at drawing and talking. I'm not one of them. I've come to, I'm accepting this about myself. I've come to terms with it. But if anyone has stuff that they want to talk about, bring it up in the chat and I'll try my best for the banter. The banter, you know? Cool. Look at this shark. It's so good. Shark facts. Yeah. Give me them shark facts. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my oil brush. And now that I have like all these colors blocked in, now I'm going to start blending them. The mixer brush is one of my favorite features in Photoshop. Essentially, what it does is takes the color that you've chosen and blends it with the color that already exists. And you have a couple of options. You can make it blend with the color that is on the particular layer that you are on, or you can have it blend with every layer that's already in your Photoshop document. So if I have, which I do have right now, which I didn't mean to do, but whatever. So I have this, like, I'm going to show you this crazy effect here. And what's also fun about the mixer brush tool is if you keep making strokes with it, you will eventually run out of paint, and you need to reload the paint by simply lifting up. So I've blended a bunch of stuff here. Blendy, 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 blendy. And you can see, there we go. I've started to run out of paint. I've created this. I've essentially like messed up the layer underneath it, right? Or did I? If I hide this layer, that layer is still there and it's not smudged. You would think, oh hey, he smudged that layer, but I didn't. And what's crazy is I can just take my eraser and erase this, and that layer underneath is just fine. It's okay. Nothing happened to it. I think that's like kind of the crazy, like if I think too hard about the mixer brush, it kind of gives me a headache. I'm not gonna think too hard about it. Also, something with the mixer brush, I also really don't like working this close to things. I will a couple times, but I like to stay a good distance out. I'm just not trying to get caught up in like the nitty-gritty details of this thing. It's just going to be too much. And something else I'd like to point out, I could totally just go find a shark on the internet, and this is a photo manipulation. I could just Photoshop a shark into this. But I don't want to. There's like no good reason not to do that other than like I like to draw, and for me this is fun. I like to draw, I like to paint, and I think it adds a little bit of a personal touch to it. I think this is where maybe the art comes in. Maybe this is like an argument. I don't know if I want to get into an argument, but like maybe what are your thoughts on photo manipulation? Is it art? Is me using the mixer brush on this photo now, does that make it art? Where is it art? It's all art. That's my opinion. It's all art. But I don't know. I just like to draw. That's why I'm drawing this shark and not just finding a shark on the internet and putting it in. I think it will add a little bit more of my personal touch to it. Shark facts. Sky Mall Rats. I think Sky Mall Rats is onto this. You're saying, even though drawing is a visual language, I feel like yeah, I'm having art thoughts here. I'm gonna get back to drawing my shark because I'm talking and not drawing. See that little blip right there? That's me accidentally hitting the side buttons, which happens every now and again. Oh my god. I don't know if you guys can hear this music in the background all that well, but there's waves in it. Which is just so on point right now. I'm gonna go up to mix up here on the slider. I'm gonna move it all the way to the left. Essentially what I'm telling the mixer brush is that I don't want to mix with the bottom cut, the layers that are already on my canvas. I'm going to assume that the canvas is dry and the colors won't mix well, and just use the colors that I've added to my brush, which are gonna be like this light blue gray. Which is crazy. Again, love that mixer brush. Gotta get them shark teeth in there. How come sharks always got their mouth open? Close your mouth. It's rude. Just his mouth breathing. Except they got gills. I think sharks are confused. Like, you should have a pointier nose. Pointy nose. definitely tell like a different part of my brain is being activated when I go into like draw mode. I think that's why it's hard for me to talk and draw at the same time. Where before it was a lot easier for me to explain what I was doing because I was just adding effects. I think I need my color picker over here because I keep referencing it. Awesome thing about Photoshop is if you don't like where one of the things are, you just move it. Which is real awesome. Super handy. Really like this blue that I just found. Trying to be aware of my light source right now and where the lightest parts of this shark would be. And we made those like sun rays coming in from the top right earlier, so I'm doing like the top right of this shark is going to be like the brightest, where the bottom left I'm going to add a lot of shadow. Thanks for these shark facts. When is Shark Week? That's like August, right? Another reason to look forward to August. Hopefully by August, we'll all be back at the Wacom Experience Center. We can see each other in person. Don't get me wrong, I do love this Twitch streaming. I don't think that's gonna go anywhere. Heard sharks can't get cancer. I learned that on Shark Week once. They've just evolved into like this perfect thing because they've had so much more time to evolve that they just don't get cancer, which is pretty damn cool. Darn cool? It's pretty darn cool. I like they're a great white shark's like white belly where it meets their middle half. I always like to think of sharks as like having like, if they're kind of split into three, they get the top half that has like that shiny reflectiveness, which I'm hoping to draw in. I think that's gonna be a little challenging. And then the middle part that's really gray, and then the bottom half is white, and the white, it's not a perfect line, it's kind of like splotchy. It kind of looks like it was like splattered on there in some parts, which I really like. Got some cool colors, Shark. Keep it up. The Windows key is right next to the Alt key, and the Alt key is a shortcut to my color picker. I hit it all the time. I should just disable that key. Although I actually do use it. This part can be kind of tedious, especially, I think, to watch. I want to thank everyone in there for hanging out with me. But I'm not going to lie, I really love this part. Painting with the mixer brush can be like really therapeutic because you make a bunch of little micro adjustments, but you make a lot of them, and so it moves at a really interesting pace, and it kind of forces you to keep moving, which is really fun. If I could like compare it to something, I like to think of it like watercolor painting in real life, because in watercolor you have to like constantly keep moving, otherwise your paint's gonna dry. And that's kind of, I get the same, kind of get into like the same headspace when I'm using the mixer brush, which is really fun. Might not be that way for every person, obviously, but tempting to get that kind of like light wrapping effect from the surface of the water. It's kind of working. It's like working enough. Whoopsie daisies, not that much. Hammerhead sharks have 360-degree vision. Ugh, why are sharks so perfect? I hate it. And thank you, Pretzel, for just popping up for no reason. That's a music streaming service that I'm using. Gives you a bunch of royalty-free music. I'm not plugging them. I'm more or less asking people out there if they know a better one. Actually, I've heard this music today has been fine. It's been kind of just background music. I don't even know if you guys can hear it. To me, it's like kind of loud and obnoxious. But I don't know about you guys. For the sake of time, I'm going to save this first of all. Oh my god, I haven't saved in a while. What's the rule? Every 20 minutes save? And thank you, Megan. I'm very self-conscious about those light marks on top of the shark. It doesn't... It could be better. Yeah. For the sake of time, I'm gonna work on this shark for a little while longer. And then I'm gonna add some effects to it. Obviously, he just looks like a shark that's just like plopped right down onto the middle of the screen, and that's not what we want. We want him to be integrated into our scene. He's really angry right now. Be less angry. Sharks always do kind of look angry. I think that's what's kind of like part of their attraction to them by people, is they're very fierce. Always got those mouth open, showing their teeth. Always got that furrowed brow. Why are you so angry, shark? Who hurt you? Who hurt you? Turn the mix down a little, trying to get a white. We need white on this great white. I hate what I just did. Undo. Gotta love that undo button. Okay. we're going to call this done for now. I'm going to put my colors back. There we go. I'm going to go up here to, I'm going to add a photo filter to this, and I'm going to put it so it's only affecting my shark by creating a clipping mask. And I'm going to make a deep red, deep blue, and I'm going to try to match the blue. It's better. That's without. That's with. Actually, I kind of like. Nope. I don't like that. Take back. Wow, there's an underwater filter. I did not know that. Let's try that. It's not my favorite. We're gonna go with it. All right, we're gonna try this. Oh, I can just change the color. We're gonna go that. I'm gonna go up here, filter. I'm not gonna go with Gaussian blur. Imagine that. I'm gonna go with noise. I'm gonna add noise. I'm gonna add. Actually, before I do that, adding noise is a destructive thing. Once I do it, I can't undo it. So I'm going to duplicate that layer. I'm going to go noise. I'm going to add noise. Doesn't that look amazing, everyone? I'm going to add a little bit of noise to this because there was a little bit of noise in my photograph. And I want the marks of this shark to kind of match the photograph a little bit more. It might sell it a little bit better. Okay. Do some erasing down here right quick. Okay. Gonna add this mask. I'm gonna make sure the shark is where I want it. So now that we have this shark, we can put it wherever we want. We can also scale it. We can also erase things, which is great. Let's put it, yeah, like right there. I'm gonna take this layer mask. I'm going to zoom in here. So this is a little trick I like to use. I've now inverted my layer mask, and everywhere where I don't want the shark to be, like on this little stick pillar, I'm gonna paint on the stick pillar. This seems a little counterintuitive, but I'm gonna show you why this is gonna be the coolest trick ever. Photoshop is just all about tricks, and that's kind of why I like it. You can just learn new tricks all the time. So once I invert this again, I also want him behind this one. And I want to kind of take note as where things in this photograph have start to go out of focus. And this stick thing is more in focus than this stick thing. And I'm actually going to make the shark go out of focus there. Okay. Oh, if this shark fin goes away. This shark fin goes away. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna duplicate this layer again. And on this top layer, I'm gonna do my favorite thing ever. I'm gonna go to that blur, go to the Gaussian blur. I'm gonna blur my shark boy. Probably not that much. Oh my god. Oh my god. Probably there. Okay, so essentially now what is happening is I have a blurry shark on top of a not blurry shark. So I have a layer mask on top with the blurry shark, and I'm going to paint away the blur shark. Cool. Color balance. I'm going to do a little bit of color balancing to this Sharko to make him match his environment a little bit better. That's what I'm trying to say. Words. Use those words, Chris. You could do it. You could do it. Okay, that's pretty good. It's not good. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this and put it here. Put that there. Cool. Cleaning up some areas around his mouth. Cool thing with the blur is it kind of hides some of your mistakes, which is great. Hit save. Cool. Alright. I'm gonna go back, skip back to Lightroom for a second. And kinda, is there a way? Yeah, so here we are. This was kind of like the point of this whole thing, is I went out in the backyard and I took my camera and I took a photograph of this weird thing on top of my shed, and it inspired me to make this. And I had a lot of fun doing this. I had a great time. I learned a lot. And, you know, maybe you guys learned something. I have no idea. But I think like this on its own is cool enough, and I didn't really need to do anything to it. But I appreciate the fact that it allowed me to go into this and look at this in a different way. How am I inverting my mask? Control I. Bam. I'm all about the keyboard shortcuts. If anyone out there has like a keyboard shortcut that's like their favorite thing ever, I would love to hear it, because I love keyboard shortcuts, and if I could like not click around my screen, it would save me a bunch of time and it would make me very happy. But yeah, Control I. Katie, Ked, Whitney, thank you for tuning in. I'm gonna save this. If anyone wants to see the finished product on this, I might keep working on this shark. That's another thing about the mixer brush that I really like, is like I can really get wrapped up into things and try to make things look as realistic as possible. I'd like to add a little bit more texture, because I think like that's the biggest thing that's making the shark not look like he's part of his environment, is he needs some texture. And I think I could add that with the mixer brush tool, and I think it would be a fun challenge. So I might work on that, but I'm probably going to post this. You can follow me at Chris Diego Art. That's kind of my handle on the Instagrams, so you can find me there. But yeah, also at the Wacom Experience Center, we can do more shark stuff. I think next week I'm either going to do more of this stuff, maybe more underwater, maybe might turn one of these into like a space scene, or I might start to get into like photo restoration. If anyone has anything that they want us to work on, definitely let us know. Pop back over to OBS. And look at that. My screen is frozen. Is it frozen here? It's not frozen here. Why is it frozen? Well, I'm not frozen here. I'm going to go back to Photoshop. Just frozen. Well, I want to just thank everyone for joining us. Thank you, Megan and Carter, for moderating. Thanks for everybody in the chat. Really appreciate it. And this was a fun one. I had a good time, and hopefully you did too. Tune back in next week for another exciting episode of... No, just kidding. I think we have another Twitch stream on Friday with Carter. He's been doing some really cool animations, and if you haven't done his poll yet, go over and check out his poll. It's essentially a lizard boy versus a gargoyle, and I'm polling for the lizard. So go lizard. Check it out on Friday. We're going to see the results of what's going to happen there. But thanks, everybody. I just don't know how to say goodbye. I'm having too much fun, okay? All right. Goodbye. Bye, everyone.